So we're just having a bit of a chat here with Dinny Collins. Dinny's a Bitcoiner. He knows a good bit about money and fiat money and inflation and stuff like that. So take it away there, Dinny. Give me an introduction and see how we go.
See, I told you your job was easy.
I'm a natural.
um, Hi, my name is Dinny Collins. A brief introduction to myself. Sure, we could spend the whole thing talking about that, but had a bad back accident 15 years ago, maybe a bit longer. Ended up breaking my back. Ended up living in a mobile home, had no job, no means of making money or earning money for myself. And that was sort of rock bottom, I suppose, on the dole, so didn't even have a job. And I suppose the journey from there was just taking responsibility, taking ownership for my body being broke was my fault, and it was up to me to help fix it rather than just putting the blame on, well, the surgeons didn't fix me right the first time. So I sort of took responsibility for my body, and I also took responsibility for my finances. And I was like, I need to get out of this. I can't be stuck in this. My parents worked like most Irish parents. They worked hard. They worked their asses off all their life, but they never had enough money, and there was never enough. The family never had enough money to do all the nice things that some other families would be doing. And I'd always be, I suppose, jealous as a kid, or thinking like, I'm missing out. How come we don't get to do this? So to become wealthy was always something that I wanted when I was a kid. It was sort of instilled in me as I want money so I can look after my parents and they don't ever have to worry about this shit again. And that really motivated me and lit a fire under me. But the journey then, I suppose, from rock bottom to go from, I call it, it's cliche, but I call it like mobile home to mansion. That's terrible, but the journey was just learning how to invest, both in my education. That's the biggest return I got on investment, was on education and learning, and then investing into assets once I understood the system that we're in, and investing into business. That was one of my main investments in my early days, was to build business. And 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 that journey has just taken me through entrepreneurship. After I healed my own back, I created a fitness business, and and then I was like, well, if I can get myself from being fucking stuck in a bed not able to walk, so I can get a lad to lose a few pounds. That's easy. So I created a fitness business again, about maybe 12. I think we're 13 years in business, and that went from strength to strength. I put a lot of work into it, and ultimately sort of retired. Sort of was able to get myself in a position to have an option to retire. So I went into sort of partial retirement at 38. I kept getting bored every time I done that, and I'd end up coming back and working on something else. And in 2020, I started Crypto with Dinny because I'm really passionate about crypto. That had a good impact on my life, on my future, on giving me security for my future and no worries about the future, and helping me not be destroyed from inflation. And it's also the highest performing asset class in the world. So I was like, well, it's been good to me. And just like I love teaching fitness, well, crypto's also, like, fitness was good to me. I'm like, well, crypto's also been really good to me. Maybe I'll just teach people what I've learned over the years and all the work I've done. And
Yeah.
again, like teaching fitness, teaching crypto is a pleasure, because you're just chatting with like-minded people and you're helping people, and people enjoy that and they're happy to pay it for that. And it's awesome if you can get a job doing something that you love. Well, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's sort of me, man.
definitely. And like what comes across to me from you is your kind of your energy as well, and you have this kind of energy and kind of presentation, and it kind of gives people confidence, and then you have a bit of humor mixed in, so it's kind of an all around kind of a package, and I found it quite good as well. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned the inflation thing there, and that's just something that I wanted to maybe speak about, because like we all see it now, like, and maybe in the last 3 or 4 weeks it's become even more, stronger and heavier on our pockets. Like ordinary everyday people are going out, they're buying their groceries, they're buying cars, they're buying everything they need, but the prices are just seem to be rising, and sometimes people are wondering, why are these prices rising? What's going on? Like, and a lot of us don't have a financial education or know anything about what's going on in the markets and all the stuff in the world. Could you give us a kind of a simplified version of what's going on, or what's happening?
Yeah, inflation is terrible because it doesn't discriminate. Inflation just destroys wealth across the board to people that don't understand what it is and how to protect themselves from it. Inflation is basically happening. Um, if we go to first principles, inflation happens when we expand the money supply. So what does that mean? I like sort of giving an analogy of cigarettes in prison, because I think that'll help people understand it. Basically, over the last 2 years since 2020, central banks all over the world have printed a lot of money. So they've basically created money out of nothing. And money is just a form of energy. And the laws of our universe are that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. So you can't then go against the laws of the universe and actually create a money out of energy and put it into the system and not think there's going to be consequences. So by printing money, what that does is it devalues the money that I have in my savings. So when a central bank prints euros, it devalues all the euros that I hold in my bank account. Now, how to understand why that happens and sort of the expansion of a money supply is, let's say we're in prison. I've never been there yet. Hopefully I don't go. But let's say you're in prison. There's 1,000 lads in prison and they're all smokers. Okay, 1,000 lads in prison. They all smoke cigarettes. The typical thing, you've seen it in the films. And some lad is able to smuggle in 10 cigarettes a week. Okay, and I'm holding just in my hand here a little marker. So pretend this is the cigarette. There's 10 of these coming in to the prison every week. All right, and we've seen in the films, let's say there's 1,000 lads wanting them and there's only 10 a week. So that's a scarce asset and a desirable asset because they're all smokers and they all want it. Okay, so one lad could, if he was able to get one of them 10 cigarettes, or even if he got them all, he would be able to exchange those cigarettes. Those cigarettes effectively turn into a money, because anything can be a money. We think of money just as our currencies, but it's not true. Like gold is money, investment property is money. When you're investing into stock market, you're actually making stocks be your money. So the cigarette effectively becomes a money. And then that person, because they're holding the money or the currency, they can choose to exchange it for goods or services. You could be like, all right, well, I'm meant to be washing the toilets all week. I don't want to do that. I'll tell you what I'll do. There's my cigarette, Paddy. I'll give you that cigarette if you do my chores for the week. And because the cigarettes are scarce and desirable, Paddy'd be like, feckin' right, I want a cigarette. I'll do that. I'll do a week's work for that cigarette. Okay, so now we're going to bring in an expansion of the money supply. So imagine a central bank printing money. Imagine then whoever's smuggling in the cigarettes, instead of getting just 10 cigarettes in, now they're able to smuggle in 1,000. So now the cigarettes aren't as scarce. They're still desirable, but they're not as scarce. So now when I go to Johnny or Paddy, I can't remember who I said, and I says, Paddy, right, yeah. Paddy, I'm on my feckin' toilet cleaning duties again this week. I'll give you one cigarette. But now one cigarette's not worth as much anymore because they're not as desirable. There's 1,000 cigarettes a week. There was only 10. Yeah. So now that one, Johnny's like, would you go away, Dinny? I'll do 1 day for one cigarette. I'm not doing 7 days. Those days are gone, baby. You'll need to give me 5 cigarettes for 7 days. So that's exactly what we're seeing today is your euros just don't buy you the same amount of stuff. You've got to give more euros to get the same things. And that's because the system has been flooded with euros. That there's more in the overall system. And that debases or devalues or steals energy from the actual ones that we hold ourselves. So that's just sort of my example of the basics of inflation. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that explains it very well. So like, as well as the money in our pockets being worth less, presumably the money in our bank account or in our credit union account or any of these accounts is starting to diminish as well. Although we don't see the figure going lower, but must be something happening in there as well. Would that be right, Dinny?
Yeah, totally, man. It's and that's why it's like a silent tax. Inflation is best described as a silent tax because people don't realize it's happening, and it's just stealing their wealth. And your wealth is your time because we exchange our time for money. So when your wealth is stolen, that means someone is taking your time or something is taking your time. And like, for me, my most valuable thing is my time because it's finite. My time and Bitcoin are the only two things on the planet that are finite. You know, I only have what I have. I don't know what I have, but I only have what I have. So in our bank account, let's say you've worked all your life, you've saved up 50 grand. Think of maybe my parents, 70 years ago, 10 grand was the equivalent to 100 grand today. Most people still think like that. They don't realize that the money's been inflated so much that 100 grand isn't like 100 grand 10 years ago. A million is the same as 10 million. It used to be when I was a kid, if you became a millionaire, you were set for life and you never have to worry. But now you're not set for life as a millionaire. You go and buy a house in Dublin. That's probably 700 grand if you want a garden. Now you have 300 grand. Like, that ain't going to last you a lifetime. Plus all your property taxes and everything else that goes on top of that. And if you have a car and you want to put a bit of petrol in it, or you have electricity and you want to turn on the light switches, So the money is not worth what it was worth, and that's the problem. That's why we don't see this happening, because it's the purchasing power that's diluted. Okay, it's not like someone's coming into your bank account and taking, if you've 50 grand saved up, they're coming in and taking it, so you've only 45 grand. But effectively, that's what's happening, because your 50 grand is losing purchasing power. And rather than you being able to buy a certain amount of goods and services, now you have to give more of your euros, like we're seeing on the petrol pumps now. It takes more of our euros to buy the same litre of petrol than it did last year, than it did 2 years ago, than it did 5 years ago. And I just like to explain it in pints of Guinness, because I like pints. And like when I started drinking Guinness, it was 190. At the weekend there, I paid 5.20 for a Guinness, and I'm out in Rush, like, so that's not Dublin city prices. I was just like, wow, that's like 1 pint to get 1 pint now is over a fiver. So it's inflation harms all our accounts. The problem is that the poor and middle class plebs, just like me, we don't understand the system, and we were always taught in school, just get a job and save, get a job and save money. But the system works against you when you do that. If you save money, you're punished, because inflation destroys your money. I explain it to people. It's like, okay, you're working and you're saving, and think of it like you have a bucket and you're trying to fill it with water and you're at the tap. And when that bucket gets full, that's financial freedom. You can turn off the tap and not work anymore, baby, and go and enjoy, more of the fun things in life. Okay? But the problem is with that system is there's a big hole in the bottom of the bucket. So you're working away and putting the water in, and inflation is just constantly draining water out of your bucket, so you can never reach the end goal. It's always moving away from you. It's a horizon that you can never get to with this inflation. So by us having money just sitting in our bank, inflation has taken the purchasing power from it, and it's just a lack of education that normal people don't understand this. Wealthy people do. That's why wealthy people don't own much cash, or they don't save much cash. They save in assets.
Like it's horrifying, really, because everyone it's affecting knows nothing about it. They're going doing their everyday tasks. They're working hard. They're saving their money, but it's not on the 6-1 news. It's not on the news. Oh, the money is being taken from you in your bank account. The money is being taken from you in your hand. You can see the inflation, but we can't see it. It's like something that should be on the news, but it's not, and we need to know about it. And that's why I've took up maybe a bit of courage to just get this out there. And I've learned so much from you. I think anyone that's working harder than I work, because I don't count myself working hard, they should know about this too. But you're explaining it well. I don't think we have that much time, so I'll just push on, Dinny. And I suppose that's relevant for pensions as well. Like, people are saving pensions and they're affected exactly the same way. Would that be correct?
Yeah, like pensions are basically connected to traditional markets. So, as we seen in 2008, like, there can be horror stories with a pension. And the problem with a pension horror story is you only learn the lesson when you're ready to retire. Oh, my pension's gone. You can't recover from that. And I do, in my consulting, talk to people who've had private pensions and they've literally blown up in their faces. So I like to teach people a Plan B pension, where we use digital assets, crypto assets, which are totally unconnected from regular financial markets. Like, Bitcoin is like a separate system, but it's a system where the money supply isn't expanded. The beauty of, and we'll probably talk more about Bitcoin, but it's that it's a fixed money supply that is only 21 million, whereas in euros, it's like a massive Ponzi scheme that they print more every year. Every day they print euros, and it devalues the euros I have, versus my Bitcoin can never suffer that, because nobody can print more Bitcoin. It's just this fixed supply. So it's across the board like that. Inflation is a problem. It's a problem for your bank account. It's a problem for your pension. Your pension has to beat inflation. If your pension is only bringing in 6% a year, and inflation is running at 7 or 8% a year, well, your pension is basically doing nothing for you for the next X number of years. And the true inflation numbers, the numbers that we're giving, aren't reflective of the inflation. Look at a petrol pump. Get out your little calculator, if you remember how to do percentages from school, and figure out the percentage that petrol has risen in the last year. It ain't 6%. It ain't 3%. It's much higher than that. Go onto Google and Google how much an Irish home has gone up in the last year. It's somewhere between 20 and 30%. That is the inflation rate if you want to buy a home. So inflation is much higher than the numbers that were being given. It's a hurdle rate for any investments that you have. They have to beat inflation just to stand still, never mind making you money. And any savings that you have that you're not getting any interest in the bank. Remember, banks are going to be going negative interest rates, it looks like, which means they're going to start taking your money for holding it there. We used to get interest with combated inflation, but that's gone now. So money is just being eroded, and wealth is being destroyed across the board with inflation. And that's why it's cool that you're getting out there and teaching people how to protect themselves, because as you say, it's not being spoken about on the 6-1 news. People aren't being educated, and the problem is it's the poor and middle class who suffer from this.
As angry as we are, and we're all seeing the prices going up, I think we should be even more angry. And I know it's a human condition to hold people responsible and accountable, but if some of the people knew exactly what was going on, they'd be even more irate. I think anyway. But we'll move on. And so, just what is cryptocurrency, Dinny? And then what is Bitcoin as a part of cryptocurrency? Maybe if we could
Deadly.
explore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we talked about this. No better man. So cryptocurrency basically came about from Bitcoin. It's blockchain technology. We won't bore you with the technicals. And I normally, as I teach people to understand this, I'm like, crypto is a lot of noise, basically. All right, there's so much happening in crypto. There's fucking NFTs, there's DeFi, there's gaming, there's metaverse. Okay, there's all sorts of stuff, and it's so distracting. So when someone comes into crypto and they try and figure it out, you have no hope in hell. I say to people, learn what Bitcoin is. This whole industry came from Bitcoin. It's the most important thing here. It's the only one that's lasted 13 years, and it's always been at the very top. And it's the world's best chance at sound money. We have unsound money at the moment. Fiat currency goes down in value over time. Bitcoin is a money that goes up in value over time. We've only used fiat money, okay, which is money that's not backed by anything, since the 70s. So it's not that long. It's only a 50-year experiment when our money has been on this fiat standard. Now, coincidentally, we chatted about health earlier. 1970 and before that, if you look at pictures from beaches, most humans are healthy. You look at what happened to the humans since the 70s, since we went onto this fiat money. It didn't just cause the money to debase, it caused the quality of everything to go down, because the money is the underlying base of human civilization. And when we move away from a money that can store value over time to a money that destroys value over time, we see it in our health, we see it in our across the board, our education, everything we see it in. So what Bitcoin is, then, if we try and stick with and get our heads around Bitcoin, which is what I say to people, unless you understand Bitcoin, there's no point in owning anything else, because you need to understand why Bitcoin's been so successful. Then you can look at any asset and understand, will it be successful? So a simple way to understand Bitcoin, I like to use, I have a gold coin in my hand, if this is on audio or not picture, but Bitcoin is digital gold, okay? It's a software version of a physical product. This is a physical product, this piece of gold, I'm holding it in my hand, okay? I'm banging it on the table. It exists in the physical world, okay? But Bitcoin shares all the characteristics of this physical product, okay? Bitcoin is divisible, gold is divisible. Bitcoin is fungible, gold is fungible. Bitcoin is portable, gold is portable. Bitcoin is recognizable, gold is recognizable. Bitcoin is scarce, gold is scarce, okay? Bitcoin actually improves on the characteristics of gold. If I have €1 million worth in gold, I'll just give you one easy example, and I'm moving down to Melbourne. I can move my gold down to Melbourne. It'll take a couple of weeks. It'll cost me tens of thousands. There'll be a heap of paperwork. It'll take a lot of time and headache, okay? Now, this is an interconnected world we live in. No one's got time for that. If I have €1 million worth of Bitcoin, I can move it down to a custodian in Melbourne, literally while I'm chatting to you here with a phone in my other hand. And it's done, okay? And it's cost me about £2. So in a world that's interconnected and we need to move value across space, Bitcoin is far superior than gold. And all the other characteristics, Bitcoin is superior than gold. And how I explain that to people, why that's important is, in my hand now I have a CD, another physical product. Okay, it exists in the physical world, but we don't use these anymore. They get what I call dematerialized, okay? Because we create the software version, and the software version is better than this physical product, this CD. We have Spotify now, and for the same price as buying one CD, okay, I can get access to any music in the world pretty much you want to listen to, plus podcasts, photos, videos, whatever, okay? And I can get it on all my devices. In fact, I can get it on anyone's device versus my CD, my physical product, which have all the constraints of a physical product. So Bitcoin is the same because it's a dematerialized digital product. its performance is 10 times better than the physical product, the actual gold coin that it's going to disrupt. And just like we've seen CDs being disrupted and become obsolete, we're on the journey to making gold, this physical product, obsolete and using a digital software version instead. And the hurdle, sorry, I won't go on too long, but the hurdle for that is, for most people, can something intangible, so it's something that you can't hold, can it have value? You know, is there value in Spotify even though you can't hold it? Of course there is. We know that. We accept that. But is there value in a money that you can't hold or see, and it's only in digital representation? The way I explain it is, I'm like, ask your kids, what do they ask for Christmas? If any of you have kids, you might even ask for FIFA credits or skins of a computer game. Like, break it down. They understand digital value, and they could have had a physical bicycle or a football, and they chose a digital product instead. So generations behind us already understand this. Generations who are older can struggle with it. But my thesis on it is, it doesn't matter. There's a gold investor. His name's Peter Schiff. For the last 10 years, he's told people not to buy Bitcoin, and he's missed out on the appreciation of 30 million%. Anyone who listens to his investment advice has lost out on 30 million%. Okay. And he's incentivized to not be pro Bitcoin because he owns gold mining companies and he has gold supply companies. So very much incentivized to not be pro Bitcoin. But he has a son who knows all the information that his father Peter knows. The son's name is Spencer. Spencer owns zero gold and only owns Bitcoin. Bitcoin is his gold. It's his digital gold. Now, inevitably, Peter's going to pass away, and all his gold bars, his son is going to inherit them. Now, his son doesn't see any value in the physical because his son is younger, and he sees more. He's like, why would I have the physical thing? I have to store that somewhere, so I can just put it into cyberspace. It's much easier. It's much better. I can move it. So inevitably, that gold is going to become digital gold, whether Peter gets his head around it or not. It's just, as humans evolve, we move towards technology. So the first little step on understanding Bitcoin is that basically Bitcoin is digital gold. Okay, and if you can get your head around that, it's a good place to start. It's so much more than digital gold, and we get hung up on it being a currency, and you need to go and be able to buy a coffee with it. But like, I can't buy a coffee with my gold coin. That doesn't mean it's not worth me holding it. Gold keeps you wealthy.
Yeah.
Okay, gold protects us from inflation, so it doesn't need to be a currency. I think a Bitcoin is more like an asset or a property. Now, it's a currency in El Salvador, and as the world moves forward, maybe it evolves to being a currency in more places. But it doesn't need to be a currency for me to want to own it. It's a really scarce asset that's appreciating in value. That's why I own it. I don't own it to spend it and buy a coffee. I buy coffee with my euros because they're going down in value. I want to get rid of them.
Yeah, I get you. And I can totally see where you're coming from with the PlayStation games and the skins, because even in this house here, the lads are here and they want their skin. They're willing to pay money for it, etc., etc. And like what you were saying about technology becoming inflation or deflationary, like what you were explaining there, I follow Jeff Booth, and in his videos he explains the whole process of technology just becoming like your CD and Spotify, and it goes around and is shown in so many examples, and he makes it so easily understandable.
Yeah,
It's actually
and
mind blowing how it all like makes sense in the end. Like it's just a matter of getting the info and processing it in your brain, kind of.
the reason why we haven't seen it happening or coming is because technology has been hiding the devaluation of our money. Okay, technology has hidden it. All right. But it's just that the quality of everything has gone down. Because if I imagine what I do today with my smartphone in my hand, how I run my business, the amount of things that I can do, like I have the efficiency of probably having 2 staff 10 years ago. I'm literally doing the work of three people could do 10 years ago. So that means I'm able to generate that wealth. But in real terms, I'm not generating that wealth. I'm just staying still, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because technology is hidden. As the money goes down in value, technology is making everything easier for us and faster. But one way it has been reflected is in our health. If we look, because the quality of what we're able to do now has dropped. But technology does hide this money expansion. It's hidden it for years, and it's sort of. But now they're sort of colliding. That we still have technology hiding it, but the actual inflation now is actually starting to beat technology. So we're ultimately getting net poorer, or we're having to use more. if your wages haven't increased with inflation, you're net poorer, if that makes sense. If inflation's gone up 10% and you didn't get a 10% pay rise, well, you're net poorer because you can't buy as much goods and services with your money anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
No, like you're explaining it, and Dr. Seyfulin Amoos, he mentions that he's a big Bitcoin guy. He wrote the book, The Bitcoin Standard, and the Fiat Standard after it. But in the Bitcoin Standard, he's saying exactly what you've just said there about like the health of people, and it's just this fiat health that's really contributing to how bad we feel and how bad we're going down, how ill we're becoming, and chronic disease and all that. And it all stems back to the fiat money system, exactly like you were saying. If you looked at a beach in the 70s compared with looking at a beach now, and it's just so easy to put it all together when you start investigating it all, and it just suddenly it starts making sense. So just briefly, I suppose, Dinny, where did Bitcoin come from? Like, when did it start, or how did it manifest, at the beginning?
Good question. It's an interesting narrative. We don't actually know who created Bitcoin. She, they go under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi came to the hacking community, the computer community in 2008 with an idea, a white paper for an electronic cash, a peer-to-peer, meaning no middleman needed. Everything we do online requires a middleman. I have to go through PayPal, AIB, eBay, Amazon. There's always a middleman. But Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, so it's like cash in the digital world. We've never had an ability to do that before. And Satoshi's vision was to create this peer-to-peer money. And there was a couple of key things on Satoshi's invention. Like, I think it's possibly the greatest invention of humanity thus far, which is a massive statement, but I think that just comes from my understanding on it. If we can fix the money, as you say, we can fix the world. At the minute, half the adult population is unbanked and can't get basic financial services that you and me take for granted, but half the adult population in the world doesn't have that privilege. Bitcoin can literally fix that overnight. So it's bigger than me. It's bigger than just my wealth and making me rich and protecting me from inflation. It can create a lot more prosperity and less hardship for the rest of the world, and it can do it quite easily. And a simple example, I know I'm on a tangent, sorry, but
No, you're fine.
in El Salvador, the IMF were there giving their loans, predatory loans, putting them into debt for 40 years, and they banked 30% of the population in 40 years of work, and they're meant to be there to quote unquote help them. Okay, when they released Bitcoin, in 4 months, Bitcoin done what the IMF and the regular system couldn't do in 40 years. In 4 months, Bitcoin banked another 30% of the population in the first 4 months. And that's the power of this thing, because mobile phone saturation is worldwide, internet saturation is pretty much worldwide, and your phone is a bank in your hands, and you're now in the worldwide economy. But how did Bitcoin start? It started in 2009 was when it kicked off. Satoshi had been working on it in 2008 in the community, and it was open source software. So the reason now that we've 30,000 cryptos and so much noise, and most of it's just scams to take money off people who don't understand what it is. But the reason for that is because everything Satoshi done was open source software, which means he shared it with the world. Traditionally, when someone creates a company or a product, you don't want to tell anyone what you're doing. You want to keep it secret because it's all for you. You want to get rich, okay? But Satoshi's invention was for the good of humanity. He didn't profiteer from it. All of the Bitcoins that he mined in the early days, he'd mined them exact same as they have to be mined now. He burned electricity. He could have just set the code that he got a pre-mine, like Ethereum. Vitalik got a pre-mine. He gets millions of Ethereum for free, and then we go and buy them. Or all the other cryptos where there's always a pre-mine where free coins are given to the creator, and then they're like pushed them out into the market, and then the plebs go buy them, and they think it's going to be the next Bitcoin, and then the thing crashes and they lose all their money. Bitcoin's very different. Satoshi didn't rig the game for himself. In fact, he didn't even reveal his identity because he wanted this thing to become basically a commodity, a decentralized commodity. And then Bitcoin achieved that by spreading throughout the world and networking throughout the world before anyone cared about it, before it had any value. And it was almost like the only way that an apolitical, a money that's not tied to politics, a money that's not tied to a central bank, a money that is not governed by rulers. Bitcoin is a money that's governed, okay, by rules, by maths, by physics, by the same rules that keep an airplane in the sky, if you like. So humans can't change it, control it. No one can tweak Bitcoin so they get an advantage. The only way to get Bitcoin is either to purchase it or mine it. So you have to earn Bitcoin. Just like in the euros, I have to earn euros by exchanging my time for them. But some people are closer to the money printer and they'll get free loans and grants and bailouts, and then someone else can print money. So the rules are very different depending on where you sit. But in Bitcoin terms, the rules are exact same for everybody.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like, I've even heard some commentators and some people in the know, like, offering the concept that Bitcoin can actually, save us from battles and wars. Like, I don't want to get too political, but there's wars going on at the minute all over the world, and like people have made the point that Bitcoin can help this. Would that be your assumption as well, or can you explain where that comes from?
Yeah, totally. Bitcoin incentivizes peace because you can't take Bitcoin from someone forcefully. Okay, it's difficult to take Bitcoin forcefully. I can go and bomb somewhere. Well, I can't, but a country can decide,
Yeah.
we're playing out, to go and bomb someone to take their physical land. We can see them bomb someone and take their physical commodities like oil. We can see them bomb somewhere, destroy the place, and take their gold. But I can't bomb the feck out of somewhere and take their Bitcoin because potentially I destroyed the Bitcoin. Or they have backups in place that it doesn't matter. You can bomb the hell out of the place and you still don't get the Bitcoin. So by monetizing, by putting a monetary value on this thing, and as Bitcoin becomes a money, that's what's happening. It's gone from zero to having almost 1 trillion of the world's monetary energy, meaning money, is inside of Bitcoin now. And it's continued to suck in and get bigger. So by monetizing this asset that can't be seized or confiscated or taken by force, it only promotes peace. It promotes negotiation. It promotes, you're not rewarded for violence and blood. And we know, like, what's happening in Russia, we're hearing what's happening in the media, but like, it's about oil, basically, is what it's about. And it's always about money. It's about seizure of money and control. So as we go more onto a Bitcoin standard, war will be difficult. The next thing about the reason a central bank was created, if you look at the history of them, was to fund wars. Because a government, a country, has only two ways to go to war. One is to print money to fund the war. And that's the easy way. The second way is to go to their citizens, right, we're going to go 80% tax because we've got to go do this war over here. And we want to take this place for X, Y, Z. And the citizens were like, we're not interested in that. We don't want you to go to war there. We don't want to pay 80% tax. So there's no war. So the easy way is to print money to fund the war. And that's what governments have done over the centuries, since the Roman times. That's how the Romans lost their dominance, was because they basically debased their currency to go to war, and it eventually destroyed them. So Bitcoin does promote peace. It promotes cooperation, and the rules are the same for everyone, and it gives financial inclusion for everyone. So it's very much, like I say, I'm passionate about Bitcoin and I love working on this sound money for the world because it's bigger than me. It's a mission much bigger than me and me just getting rich. It's like, it's going to make a better world. And as well as that, just my last little point on it, Bitcoin is a money that goes up in value over time. Euros are a money, or sterling, dollars, whatever, are a money that goes down in value. So with euros, you're incentivized to spend, consume, go into debt. But if you compare that to with Bitcoin, you're incentivized to save. Think of your future. Do you really need that thing? Is that just a waste of your money? Because what you're spending it on, those Bitcoins will probably be worth more in the future. So do you really need the thing? Do you always have to replace? And I think that mindset not only creates more prosperity for people's future, but it helps the earth, like, because we don't need to be constantly consuming and throwing out old to get new. We'll be more sensitive to our purchases. I think when we have a money that's going up in value over time, we're incentivized to save it and think about our future as opposed to just consumption.
Yeah, I get you. And just you're really emphasizing Bitcoin, and we can see the difference in, say, the other coins. They're a lot less manageable, because they're more manageable even because people can add or take away money from them at times, like you were saying about the guy that owns Ethereum. or invented it, whereas Bitcoin is this kind of a set structure with 21 million coins. It can't be changed, it can't be, manipulated, stuff like that, which is a huge advantage to it as well. And like, I know it's been around since 2009 and it's come up in value. Like, are we still, like, should people still invest? Is it too late now, or is it just early in the cycle, or midway through it, or what kind of a time scale is it?
It's the emergence of sound money. So it's very early because only 1 to 2% of the world owns it. My thesis is 90% of the world owns it within the next 1 to 2 decades. So it's very early. The problem with Bitcoin is people will see the price of it and they'll go, it's 35,000 euros or 40,000 euros or whatever that is. Sure, I can get 1,000 of these yokes for under a penny. I'll get them. So they'll steer away from Bitcoin thinking that they're going to get better return on investment by buying something that's cheap. I teach people, don't worry about the price of something. It's about the value. The value is all that matters. Bitcoin might be expensive to you at 35,000, but that doesn't matter a bit to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the amount of the world's wealth that sits inside the asset, and divide that by 21 million. At the minute, there's 1 trillion. If there's 10 trillion in Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is worth 750. What if there's 200 trillion? There's 900 trillion assets in the world, 900 trillion. Bitcoin is 1. And it's a better store of value than the other 900. It's much better. And all we're seeing is the capital leaving. So for instance, capital is leaving currencies to go to Bitcoin. It's leaving stocks and equities to go to Bitcoin. It's leaving property investments. And I literally have people ringing me up with my consultant going, Dinny, I have an apartment there, getting taxed to be Jesus on it. They're ringing me up at 12 o'clock at night because the sink is leaking. I'm just selling it for Bitcoin. So we're in real time, I'm experiencing it from all the asset classes that capital is leaving and coming to Bitcoin. Staying with bonds, like traditionally bonds and treasuries, that was your store of value. But now all the bonds are they're not beating inflation, so you're guaranteed to lose money. You have 200 trillion in the bond market. Now you have one Bitcoin bond launched in El Salvador, and it's going to beat inflation.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a genius to work out that it's probably going to be a little bit of interest in that. And what if some of that 200 trillion starts to flood in and we see more bonds built on Bitcoin? So like, and just not to be throwing out wild numbers, but there's a stock to flow model that's predicted the price of Bitcoin since Bitcoin was under $1. It's been accurate within 2 standard deviations of the model. That model has Bitcoin priced at 7 figures in 2025 and 8 figures in 2030. And what I say to people is, even if, let's say, Plan B's stock to flow model is 90% wrong, there's still probably nowhere you can get that sort of return on your money. And what if it's right? Bearing in fact, for 13 years it's been bang on. It's just no one's heard about it. So Bitcoin for me certainly isn't overvalued. And how I get my position is a dollar cost average. And just to touch on that for your listeners, dollar cost average just means buying a set amount at a set period of, at the end of the month, some of my euros, I exchange them to Bitcoin. I don't need to look at the price. I don't need to time the market. I don't need to buy or sell. I'm just buying it because I think in the future, it's going to be much more valuable, and there's going to be more than 1 trillion of the world's capital in it, because money is just flooding into it. And all the macro events that are happening with the war and what happened over the last 2 years, I won't mention the name, but you know what I'm talking about, has just highlighted the reason why this is why Bitcoin was created. Bitcoin was created for inflation, as a lifeboat for an inflation environment, and we have an inflation environment.
Brilliant. It's great advice and well explained. I'm conscious I don't want to keep you too long, Dinny. I have written down here, is there anything we can do to combat inflation? And we've kind of answered that, as in, maybe invest in Bitcoin, get a bit of Bitcoin for the normal everyday person that's tipping around. And when you say dollar cost averaging, you just really mean you don't have to be taking 5,000 out of your bank account, planting it in, or even 1,500, whatever it is. You just get all your bits done, and whatever money you've left aside, if you have it to save, put in that small amount. Is that kind of the way that you intend?
Yeah, how you protect yourself in inflation, and this has been the way long before the last 2 years. This is how wealthy people get wealthy, is you don't save money, because money is going down in value over time. You save assets, because assets are going up in value. Why are the assets going up in value? Well, it's just It's asset inflation because the money supply is expanding. So this is how wealthy people become wealthy, is they understand this principle. And rather than saving euros in the bank, they'll change their euros into an investment property, or they'll put them in stocks, or they'll put them in precious metals, or they'll put them into some sort of, you need to buy something that's scarce and desirable. Okay. When I look at all the assets on the world today, the most attractive one is Bitcoin. It's the most scarce thing on the planet because it's finite. We've nothing else on the planet that's finite. All right. Think of like the Mona Lisa. Your man who painted it is dead and everyone likes it. What's the value of it? Infinity. It just goes up forever. You can't put a price on it. Bitcoin is pretty much similar like that. Okay, but Bitcoin can become a money. The Mona Lisa can't become a money because there's only one of them. It's only one person can own it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so that's basically how you protect yourself, is to learn how to invest into assets. If you don't learn how to invest, you're guaranteed you're getting poor over time. And that's the problem. People are like, investing's risky. And I'm like, but not investing is riskier because you're guaranteed you're getting destroyed.
It's going down as money, yeah.
Yeah. You don't have a choice. So just learning the basics of how to invest and how to appreciate, how to accumulate assets. That's the goal. You want to have more assets. We're just taught how to save and get liabilities and debt.
And I'm just gonna, like, people that might watch the video might swift through it, they mightn't even watch it. But like, if people were interested in investing in a bit of Bitcoin, is it simple enough to do on your phone or on a laptop, or like, I know you have CryptoWithDinny. We might just mention that at the end to see plenty of videos on Facebook and loads of advice and direction, which is brilliant, I find. But just maybe in a quick form, is it easy on a phone, technology of today?
Yeah, buying Bitcoin has never been easier. It's just literally you go to what's called a crypto exchange. You could register with one. It's basically like, think of it like a bank account. You'll have to have your, everything you need to open a bank account, proof of address and ID and all the regular stuff. Once you've done that, you just click into the exchange, click on Bitcoin, buy, you get out your debit card or whatever you want to use, or you can do a bank transfer to it. And an exchange basically does what it sounds. It does. It exchanges euros for crypto like Bitcoin, and it does the vice versa. If you ever want to sell your Bitcoin or your crypto back for euros, you would do it on your exchange. And once you have your Bitcoin, then you have your Bitcoin wallet on the exchange. There's a lot more to it. Obviously, there's nuance and security issues and everything. But that's the basics of how you get it involved. I would say to people, invest into your education before you go dump your money into crypto, because most people, they end up down the wrong rabbit holes, and it takes them a couple of years to figure it out, and they pay not only with their time but with their money to learn the lessons. So for me, I've always got, like I said in the beginning, when I live in mobile home, I got great value by investing into my education. Suddenly understood, Tony Robbins taught me you can spend 10 years trying to figure something out, make mistakes, waste your time, spend all the money, whatever, and then you're an expert after 10 years. Or just find someone who knows everything that you know and pay them, and in a weekend you can literally learn everything you need to know and not waste 10 years, and then you have 10 years to profit from that knowledge. So that's something that I am very I always encourage people to focus on education first, especially with investing. It's education that makes money, not just having money. If you go and invest and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to give your money to someone who has a better education, because the money in investments is just moved from the uneducated to the educated a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Like, even myself, I wouldn't count myself even 50%, great with Bitcoin or the knowledge on it. You're just learning all the time. And the great thing for me is it just, the knowledge you gain, it supplements everything you do, especially in Bitcoin and everything to do with it. I just want to move on again, Dinny. I just have written here what's eventually going to happen, our fiat money system, and I'm a pleb, as you say, and I don't have that much knowledge, but I have a feeling that it's getting to a point that of no return. Like, it seems to be just going so far away. Like, is something going to happen fairly soon, or could you make a judgment on that, or is that difficult?
Yeah, that's pretty difficult, beyond my pay grade, I'd say. I don't know when it's going to happen or what's going to happen, but all we've seen is, since the existence of fiat money, it's just gone down in value over time. When we look at the history of fiat currencies, they all eventually have gone to zero. The longest one surviving at the moment is the British pound, but it's lost 99% of its value. And and that's the best one.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it doesn't look, it's not great. Like how the world plays out over the next decade. Um, is there a massive financial collapse? I don't know. None of that needs to happen for me as an investor. I just protect myself from all eventualities. And then I'm not like sitting on the sidelines just owning gold and hoping the world collapses around me and gold goes to 20,000 an ounce or something. Um, so the short answer for that is I don't know what they do. They've innovated and they've made our fiat system survive till today. I don't doubt that it's going to continue. How long continues, I don't know. Maybe it continues beyond my lifetime. Either way, the only certainty I know is that my purchasing power in euros is going to constantly go down, and the money supply is going to constantly inflate. It has to, because at the minute we've more debt than we have GDP. So we have to print money just to service the debt so that countries around the world don't go bankrupt. So the irony is people call Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme when they don't understand it. But if they understood the system that they live and work
yeah,
in, that is the definition of a Ponzi scheme, that you have to keep creating more and more and more. Money is created in that system through debt, versus in Bitcoin, money is created in collateral. It's collateral-based money. So like really, what is debt? It's money created out of nowhere. It's fresh air. There's no collateral behind debt, really.
yeah,
Like, so that's just my sort of take on it. I don't know where fiat goes. The only thing I know is it goes down in purchasing power, and that's not going to change. It's done that for the length of time that we've been on, whatever it is, euros, pounds, punts, dollars. Their purchasing power goes down, and that's not going to change.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. I know there's a lot we didn't cover, but it's kind of just first time and just a brief chat. There's mining and there's loads of other stuff. Basically, is there any other people that you follow that people could gain information from, or look up YouTube videos, or listen to, or get knowledge on Bitcoin and inflation, etc.?
Yeah, Michael Saylor speaks very eloquently, a lot more eloquent than I would speak on Bitcoin, and he's a good resource. Just stick him in, Michael Saylor. He was the first public company to buy Bitcoin. He's a software engineer, so he understands software, and he's an engineer, so he understands engineering. And he explains inflation and how Bitcoin works and everything really well. You mentioned the Bitcoin Standard. That's a great book. It is heavy going. When I read the Bitcoin Standard the first time, I did struggle through it. I've read it 3 times. Following in total now, I had to revisit, and each time I learned a little bit more. So
Yeah,
sometimes I'd be like, should I really tell people to read the Bitcoin Standard because it's heavy going, or maybe just listen to a bit of stuff, but just basically getting into the Bitcoin community and learning, and ultimately you start to see people who you connect with. There's thousands of people in the space teaching, and we all relate and connect with different types of people. But Sailor is a good place to start. I like Simon Dixon as well, really good. He was the first investment banker in the Bitcoin space. He wrote the first published book to feature Bitcoin. So Simon has a really deep, unique, and early understanding of Bitcoin, not only Bitcoin, but our legacy financial system, because that's where he worked his career as well. So he understands both systems, and you do get very unique perspectives from Simon.
yeah. I hadn't known about Simon, and you mentioned him to me, and I just watching his videos now, and I find them really good, really helpful, and he's got a lot of value. Just finally, Dinny, where can people find you? Like social media, or where do people catch up with you?
Well, if there's a few waves, you'll find me out in the sea surfing. Crypto with Dinny. We're on Facebook, Crypto with Dinny. We're on Instagram, Crypto with Dinny. We're on Twitter at Dinny Collins, and obviously the website CryptoWithDinny.com. We have 5 free tips when you hit the website. If you're new, get on them. They're just basic mistakes. Don't make rookie errors. I find a lot of people do, even if they're in crypto for a couple of years, they don't realize that they might have made rookie errors at the start. We also do a free Bitcoin Basics webinar, and you can get a ticket for that on the website CryptoWithDinny.com. Jump on that, and it's just a webinar like this, and I just go through sort of with a bit more structure to explain Bitcoin a little bit deeper. And that's why. And I obviously have full disclosure, I have paid products as well. You can pay me and I can set up a retirement plan in crypto for you, and all that other stuff. But yeah, all the regular socials, YouTube as well. And I do a podcast as well, which has gone well on YouTube, and it's also on Spotify. Jeez, I'm everywhere.
That's great. That's the beauty of today's world. It is easy to get out there and make
Yeah,
yourself seen and heard. And if you have the guts to do it, you'll reap the rewards. Isn't that it?
yeah,
Yeah. So no, that's great. And just want to say thanks, Dinny. Thanks for your time and thanks for coming on to have this little chat with me.
definitely, man. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me on. It was cool to chat about that stuff.
Thanks very much, Dinny. We'll talk again soon.
Boom.